This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to this edition of the panel on lairmedia.tv. And we have a YouTube channel, lairmedia.tv. This is where you'll find these programs and all the other ones as well. And from next week, we'll be going live. So you can tell all your friends we're going live on our YouTube channel, which is lairmedia.tv, and on our Facebook page as well. So look forward to that. We have a new guest as well next week. He'll be back from his break. He'll be with us as well, a new panelist. So we might have a bit. But for tonight's purpose, good evening, Mary. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, Tony Browne. Welcome.
How are you doing, Pat?
Now, people, the format, well, we're going to start off with I suppose, as an intro to our subject matter, all the missing children in this country, which is an absolute disgrace in one way, not getting enough of attention, and you wonder why it doesn't get enough of attention. You know, we have a national broadcaster who's funded by you and me, and now they're going to be funded by $750 million more by the government, so surely they could take the time to do an hour-long program on the missing children under the care of the state and under the auspices of the state. So this is a contribution by Paddy Tobin, who's consistently bringing up this subject.
Reasons why I'm so frustrated is, for the last 5 years, I have been raising child protection in this House, and I have been stonewalled by ministers. When I table general questions, I'm told that those questions are too vague and they can't be answered. When I table detailed questions, they're told they're too specific, and as a result, individuals could be known as a result, and they're not answered. When TUSLA or Gardaí release information, it's often intentionally complicated and convoluted, so to make it impossible to decipher. And in some cases, TUSLA have given me documents and the Gardaí have given me documents, and both are completely contradictory to one another. And I've watched Minister James Browne ram through legislation through this House, which greatly reduces the penalty for criminal exploitation of children. And he was enabled in doing so by the opposition and backbenchers on the government who didn't bother showing up for the debate. Now, statistics released to AIM2 on releases of parliamentary questions have shown that nearly 200 children, either in state care or known to the state, have died in the past decade. 38 children died because they took their lives, of this number. More died from drug overdoses. 11 of those deaths were murders. 5% of all the children who died in state care or known to state care were murdered. It's quite an incredible figure, you must agree, Minister. We know that the number of children who are being referred to TUSLA now on an annual basis is at 100,000. This is double that it was in 2018. And to put that in context, about 60,000 children are doing their leaving cert this year, and right now we are referring 100,000 children on an annual basis to TUSLA. Children in state care and those known to state care are being trafficked and sexually exploited in Ireland right now at a serious scale. In other countries, this would be a national scandal. The resources of those countries would be marshalled instantaneously to deal with the issue on a comprehensive basis, and there would be accountability. There would be resignations at the very top. So the ministers, when I brought up the issues of hypocrisy, some of the ministers in front of me had puzzled, quizzical faces. Well, I'll get to the specifics of this. Special emergency accommodation arrangements consist of unregulated accommodation in this state, mostly by third-party providers in rented accommodation. They are being used by TUSLA to accommodate children in state care. And we know from reports in the media that there are serious question marks in relation to the vetting of the people working in these areas and the providers of those special emergency arrangements. There is a shortage of foster placements coupled with a consistent underfunding of private and voluntary sector, which has made TUSLA more reliant on those dodgy companies to protect vulnerable children. Children in state care, particularly residential care, are being left hugely exposed, Minister. Child sexual exploitation is the biggest form of human trafficking in Ireland at the moment, and it's happening in real time amongst children that are supposed to be in the care of this state.
Now, that's Padre Tobin, and in fairness to the man, I wish he was in our constituency. He's consistently bringing that up in Dáil Éireann. If Micheál Martin and Simon Harris spent less time in interfering with the workings of another country in the Middle East and more time on this urgent matter, there'd be a lot more respect for both those and their parties in this state. And together with that, there's 15,000 of our citizens homeless in emergency accommodation, and 5,000 of those are children. This is no way to run a state or a society. Mary, what do you think?
I just think it's just, there are no words to describe it. I mean, I can't understand how they're getting away with not answering the question about where these children are, and if they don't know, why not? I mean, 37 children were reported missing from Tusla Care so far this year alone. And according to the Irish Times, 31 of those missing are separated children seeking asylum, while 6 went missing from residential settings. I mean, there is no, I can't come up with an answer. They're not giving an answer. Why? And if they haven't got an answer, why don't they have an answer? Did they not keep records of these children in their care? Did they not keep records? How careful were they with the vetting of the people that were actually taking them into their care? I just can't understand how it takes Padre Tobin so many attempts to try and get an answer, and Roderick O'Gorman or nobody else seems to know the answer.
What do you think, Tony?
And under the way we are in this country, if this was in England, I don't think they'd put up with it. They'd keep on and on and on and on. But here in Ireland, it's an attitude of, oh, he's answered, Mr. O'Gorman has answered, or Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so has answered. That's grand. They don't know. And we're satisfied with that. Well, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
You'd wonder what's happening. There was nobody in the Dáil even listening to him there now. There was only about 6 or 8 there.
That's right.
Was the minister there? They showed your man from Laois. He's not the minister. The fellow they showed sitting in the seat. And I'd like to have seen the response to it. What was the response to all that? What Padre Tobin was saying. There was no response. There was nobody there. All the benches were empty. And they're not listening. They were all in the bar. They're not interested.
But it's my contention, Tony, that when you're an elected member of the Dáil, you should be compelled to attend every sitting of the Dáil. You should do that. Most of the time, the Dáil is empty because people are not interested in the subject that's discussed. Well, tough. If they're an elected member of the Dáil, they should be there for the entire duration of the Dáil sitting and listen to absolutely everything, because it may not be of interest personally to them, but it'll certainly be of interest to at least one of their constituents.
That's been on for years. You only sit 3 days a week anyway. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
How difficult is it for them to sit in and listen to everything that's been discussed?
They're not interested. And it goes on and goes on and goes on.
I think there's an opportunity coming up now soon when they'll be knocking at the doors. I think.
Oh, I can't wait for them.
Every single politician from Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and the Green Party should be asked that question about the missing children and about the homeless, the 5,000 homeless children of our own citizen in this republic, and find out. Them by the answers they'll give anyway. It's not good enough.
They have an answer. They always have an answer. The answer they usually give is as regards attendance, that they're attending meetings. That there are meetings, they have this thing that they say there are meetings going on that we don't know about. They always say that. I've had them for years say that. They're attending meetings and there's nothing you can do,
Well, I mean, I'm child protection officer for the Munster region of An Commission Larinka Gaelica, which is the world's largest Irish dancing organisation. It's been in the media quite a lot for not the best of reasons, but you know, I'm the child protection officer, and the people that we have to go to and we have to be certified with is TUSLA. And yet TUSLA now are saying that they don't know where these children are.
Good evening, Caroline, and welcome along. I think you know everyone here.
I kind of know you all right.
The first argument,
Especially the delicious Tony Browne.
anyway, you're very welcome. We're talking about the missing children and Paratro being brought up in the dog, but it's a scandal.
But why hasn't the point I'm making, Pat, is why hasn't TUSLA been removed of their authority? Why do the likes of us have to be certified? Every year I do my certification with TUSLA, and yet they don't seem to be accountable or responsible when it comes to trying to find where these children are.
I mean, how can you have 200 plus children go missing? I suppose when you look at the case that's ongoing at the moment, being investigated by the Gardaí, of the 6-year-old child who wasn't seen for 2 years. For 2 years. I mean, and the ministers still get their salary and their expenses and their attendance as well, and no responsibility. The Minister for Children, I think, is Roger Gorman, isn't it?
He is.
He's been an absolute and utter disgrace and appalling on you.
He wasn't there. They showed you man there, and that's the fella from a Fianna Fáil fella from County Laois that they showed it sitting in the seat.
Oh, in answering the questions, yeah, he was taking the dog questions at the time. There's a role. They do that. They do that in rotation, you know. I forget his name now.
It's just absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But, you know, what has gone on? I interviewed a woman one time who was illegally adopted in this country, and she only found out many years later that she was actually handed over by the doctor who delivered her to the family. Her mother never knew that she had survived, and it took her many years to find out that her mother never knew she had survived. She thought she had died. The doctor literally took her and handed her over, and the doctor was doing that quite a lot. She's her daughter's denying it, but this woman has been on TV and everything talking about how she was forced adoptions or illegal adoptions, but it took her into her 50s to find out that her mother never knew she had lived. I mean, the things that has gone on in this country and the things that are going on in this country, and there's no accountability.
Yeah, that's the problem. Caroline?
Well, I have to totally agree with Mary, what she said there with the accountability thing. Yeah. I mean, you'd be looking at who was the head of TUSLA at that time, and also who was the top bottle washer in the government that's meant to be over that department.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's all down to responsibility and accountability. And as we see time and time again with all other scandals as well that's going on.
I mean, sorry for interrupting you, but back years ago with the whole Chum Babies thing, now we've this, so who's to know in 10 or 15 years' time what other scandals are going to come out?
Yeah.
We need to tighten up on our protocols when it comes to who's responsible for what, and there should be only a certain number of people responsible for any given job that you can go to and find out. And if they don't know, why don't they know? This country, and Pat, you worked in the civil service and you had the audacity when you left the civil service to say to me one day, God, they never answer the phone. I said, welcome to our world. You know, this is what they do. They leave you hanging on a phone, then they pass you on, or they say, oh, the person dealing with that is not in today. Can you ring back on Monday? Not good enough. There should be more than one person dealing with something as serious as children going missing.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I had to ring a government department myself months ago, and I gave up in the end because you just don't get to speak to the person who you want to ask the question to, and there's no point in the person answering the phone is not equipped. to answer the questions that you may have. So then you're waiting and then eventually you'll get cut out. I spent 28 minutes waiting on a call one day, and I was put onto the person who said they're not the right department. They pressed the button for me to hold before I could say anything and put me onto another extension which went into an answering machine. And after that, I threw my hands up in the air and I put on the kettle. But I'm just saying that if someone was in a distressful situation,
Yeah.
there is nothing out there. You have a multitude of charities getting well funded and not available. Not available. There's no crisis management of our mental health services, and now you see the children as well. It's an absolute shambles. And all the government would say to you, well, we allocated €6 million to them, or 8 million.
What were you going to say, Caroline?
All I was going to say there was, I have one or two questions for you. How old is that organization? How long has it been going on for TUSLA?
It was renamed TUSLA because the other name on it was MUD.
It was established in January 2014 under the Child and Family Agency Act of 2013.
Right.
And
10 years.
I knew a fella had a dog. He had a dog about 9 years, right? And he told the dog one night sitting down, he told the dog that he was that he got him from a home and that he adopted him. Just the dog ran away and he never saw him anymore. When he told him he was adopted, the dog took off. And he never saw him anymore. Funny, isn't it? The dog
what are you rambling about? I mean, I'm just looking here at their mission statement. Since its establishment, TUSLA has been working to promote and enhance the safety, well-being and outcomes for children in Ireland. It has grown significantly and it's adapted to meet its increasing demand for its service with 100% increase in child protection and welfare. They should be utterly ashamed to have that.
It's a shambles. It's full of these very disturbing cases. You looked at the case of that sergeant. What's his name? That famous case when he was
accused of assaulting his children, and he didn't.
Yeah, of sexual assault. Well, you saw that case how shambolic the agency was. Cut and paste stuff. That was a lie and untrue, and we had to destroy them. I forget his name now. It's not on the top of my head. The whistleblower sergeant.
He was a whistleblower.
And he won his case in the end. But I mean, you could be ruined. You could be absolutely ruined.
Yeah, but you see, the thing about cases, Maurice McCabe.
McCabe, that was him, yeah.
The situation with that is that mud sticks, and there's always people who mightn't like you or mightn't like your stance, who will be only too happy to say, "Oh, where there's smoke, there's fire," and everyone and his mother knew that Maurice McCabe had done nothing wrong, and was totally wronged. And treated abysmally the way he was treated, and his family were separated, and everything was done to him. How do you get that back? How do you get your name back?
Well, you don't get your name back. You simply don't. That's the one thing I always worried personally when I was a taxi driver. When I was driving a taxi for a living, I was always afraid of, particularly at night time when you work the weekends and bringing people home who were drunk, young girls, young women, and it would only take one person to make a complaint against you. It might be utterly unfounded, have no basis in fact, but the fact that they make the complaint to the Gardaí are obliged to follow it up. Whilst they're following up the complaint, you're out of work.
Yeah.
You're out of work. It gets around in a town. Oh, did you hear about Barry there? He's being investigated by the guards. I mean, it happened a very good friend of mine. It happened a very good friend of mine. I won't mention his name because it's a small country, a small town, but it literally physically killed the man, killed him. He died a couple of years later, but that killed him. He was no more guilty than anybody, you know, than the two people they pardoned today for the murder and all. He was no more. And the absolute toll it took on him and his family was shocking. Yes, there was no basis for the complaint, but the person who made the complaint was not prosecuted.
Yeah, but you see, therein lies the problem in our judicial system. If a woman or a man accuses somebody of assault and it's proven that they didn't, that person should get jail.
Yeah, damn right.
Because there are plenty of innocent men out there who have been wrongly accused of crimes that they didn't commit, and it's taken, in some cases, years for them to clear their name. And again, there is, in some people's eyes, they're never going to be cleared.
You'll be always guilty. Now, from time to time, we do take a bit of fun on the show here. Your LearMedia.tv is the program, our YouTube channel. Press the red button on the right hand side to subscribe to our channel. And listen. This is a very short tip. You'll have to pay attention, viewers, to get this joke, but it's worth it.
What's your name?
Hey! I didn't.
What?
Hey, Pat, I think he was short-changed there, was he?
I think he was. Yeah, he got the shot into the stick. That was the wonderful Dale Allen, you know. It was.
I didn't see that coming.
It was. He was the first stand-up. The people credit him with being the first stand-up comedian, you know, who used to come out, and he gave the stand-up comedian, I suppose, a place in entertainment in the 70s and 80s, and he used to come out with his chair and stool and a glass of whiskey, and sit there for a half an hour, and he was just superb, so superb.
Hey, Pat, I was just wondering, do you ever talk about sport on the podcast?
Oh, we do a sporting podcast on a Monday night.
Just want to let you know, Man United are 4-1 up in the League Cup against Leicester.
Tony is delighted.
That's fabulous.
Look, a ray of light has appeared over Tony's head.
That's fantastic now. Who did they play again?
Leicester City.
Who got the goal? Did Calavetti get the goal?
No, Casemiro scored one.
Who?
Casemiro.
Did he get the goal?
Pat does a show on a Monday night with a cousin of mine, Joe, and he played for Leicester. He was the captain of Leicester City.
He won like that, the result now tonight.
Spurs are beating Man City 1-0 at the moment.
You're joking me. Are they?
Oh, that's a surprising result now, really, you know.
Who got the goal for Spurs?
God only knows.
Caroline, he couldn't care less. Tony's sincerity is losing off him.
That is fabulous now. Yeah. I'd sleep a lot better in my bed now knowing that tonight.
That's good.
No, that's fantastic now.
Tony hates sport.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay.
Hates it.
Would you lose that? How do you know that now they're winning? How do you know that? Are you watching something else when they're talking to us?
I know, I have psychic ability.
I'm just going to bring up something in the light of what we were speaking about there on the first topic, and we'll move along to something else.
Caroline can tell the future.
I'll have to get another computer so I can be looking at that at the same time.
But before we move on, we just want to add on to the woes of this outgoing government: €330,000 on a bike shed, 436,000 for the Ukrainian prefab houses, 740,000 on a bus stop in Carrick-on-Shannon,
Jeez.
€2 million on a doll printer, 1.4 million on a security hut, and €750 million to RTE, and 2.4 billion on the Children's Hospital, which isn't finished or opened yet.
And not to mention, Pat, not to mention having to knock down the walls of a listed building to get the printer into,
Yeah.
because they bought the printer too
we
big.
have our own words here when it was announced last week that the Limerick rugby experience is due for closure. But I found out today that it has got a reprieve for the next 3 years. Funding is guaranteed by the PJ or the what's his name, McManus, PJ McManus Fund has agreed to fund it for 3 years. And the Mayor of Limerick, John Moran, came out today and said that he'd make up the difference over the 3 years from the mayoral fund to keep it open for 3 more years. So that's the latest on the Limerick.
Pat, that was a red herring from day one. I said to you from on here from day one, that is not going to last. How were they expecting American tourists or any kind of tourists to rock up on a coach and stop outside? When I worked in Bunratty Castle, I know that the American tourists don't like walking. They'd be dropped outside the Royal George Hotel or Cruises Hotel or wherever, and they'd walk in. Where were they supposed to walk and find their way around a strange city to get to the museum?
Well, there's nowhere for people who know Limerick City now. Like, there's nowhere for a bus to pull up outside the Limerick rugby experience for a start. Nowhere at all. Nowhere. And it was, I don't know, Tony, what about the people in Limerick? There are very few within there anyway, you know?
Very few. I think it's expensive to go in there now. Not sure how much it is.
Well, it's cheaper, I'll tell you now, Tony. It's cheaper to go into the Louvre in Paris than to go into the Limerick rugby experience.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
You'll have to walk a mile and park your car and walk a mile.
No, it's cheaper to go into the Louvre.
Have the other three of you been there? Have you ever been in there?
I've been into the shop.
You've never been in the experience itself. What about you? Have you been in it?
Caroline?
No.
And what about you, Mary?
Never. I walked past it and looked in the window.
And
thought, what on God's name did Fines close?
Hey, Tony, I reckon if people see Mary going in there, there'd be an awful lot more people going in there.
No,
I forgot that point. No, that's a fair point now, you know.
No, but I'll tell you seriously, to God, I looked at it and I thought, who in their right minds would want to actually come in here? That lovely Fines that's been there forever, or seemed to be there forever, a most beautiful store, a landmark in Fines Jewelers.
Oh, yeah.
And that gone to build that monstrosity that hasn't lasted. Everything of worth in this city was knocked down, whether it was St. John's convent school, Canucks, Cruises Hotel, everything that was of worth anything. I mean, the facade of Canucks was just beautiful, and they have look what they have instead in pennies.
Since 1960.
Yeah.
That's not the point. The point I'm making is we're not into renovating and restoring and keeping things looking Georgian like they should be. We're mad to just knock it down and build a prefab and build something modern with lots of glass.
Hey, Pat, I have a question for Pat there.
Yeah.
And it's just ask Pat, did they give some sort of guarantees that they're going to run it differently, that they were able to get that backing by JP McManus, I wonder?
I think the McManus Fund has guaranteed funding for 3 years, and because the Limerick Council obviously poured cold water and about taking it over to the council, ownership to the council. So it's in a hiatus now, so they're going to keep it open. But I like the building. I think it's a fabulous building myself. I think it's really nice. I don't like
glass buildings. I don't like big glass buildings. I'm a traditionalist. I like, if it's a Georgian city, which it is, part of our city is Georgian, part is medieval, and part is modern. All the Georgians should be kept Georgian. in my view.
I think it could be turned into a Midwest men's club, just an exclusive men's club in the Midwest, you know, where you pay a fee every year and to go in and smoke your cigar and have your brandy and your game of pool with convivial conversation with men only. I think that would be an ideal.
A men's club. A men's
club. Yeah. No, a men's club. Men's club.
There is one above Barry Simon.
Oh, there's plenty of men's. There's plenty of men's clubs.
We could call it the Tony Browne Men's Club.
Yeah.
The one above Barry Simon is doing great business. People
what is it?
They're a fantastic idea for men.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It would be nice, you know, and you could have the men's experience, the Midwest. You could market it abroad and all with a proper marketing program behind it, and it's something that's sadly lacking in most big towns, you know.
They could call it Chalk Bar.
Yeah, it's something we should bring up now with the politicians when they knock at our door. And we are crippled with taxes and charges. We have the NCT charging, we have water charges, rates, we have income tax, we have the universal social charge, we have VAT, we have tax on tax. We're absolutely sick with taxes in this state anyway, you know. And then they're being wasted on bicycle sheds and security huts. It's all wrong.
My two greatest peeves would be the household tax, especially on a house that happens to be your family home.
The property tax, is it?
The property tax. In my case, the house that I lived in with my parents, and it's now mine. If I bought a second house, I can understand a property tax being put on a second home or a second house for rent, but not on a family home. And secondly, we're paying rates for our cars. We're paying tax. I think it should be like they have in, I think it's Australia. I know it's Australian. I know it's France as well, as far as I know. When you go to get your petrol, you pay tax on your petrol, and that takes into account your road tax and everything. So you don't actually pay a road tax because you pay by the amount of travel you do. So some people don't travel as much in their cars as others. So those that are traveling long distance will make up the deficit. And I was
reading in the paper on another social issue where there's in light of the hate speech bill that was passed in the Dáil and signed into law by Higgins, our president, who I suppose a lot of people call him a traitor. No, I'm not calling him a traitor. I'm saying a lot of people call President Higgins a traitor. And when you look at the Oxford Dictionary's word of traitor, I suppose he would fit into that category a couple of years ago anyway. But I'm not calling him a traitor. You know, other people can do that. You know, but I'm just saying he signed all the bills into law, including the hate speech bill. But over in France, there was an imam, a Muslim imam, from Tunisia preaching in his local mosque. He said, the French national anthem and the French flag are evil. Evil. He's living in France for over 40 years. For a couple of days later, the police arrested him.
No, that wasn't France. It was Italy. It was
home.
Maloney has
at his home, and he was sent back to Tunisia.
Yeah,
after 40 years living in the country.
Yeah, that was Maloney.
No messing there.
No, if this was Ireland, he'd be given free accommodation and free travel. Yeah, yeah, he would. Yeah, he would be feted by them, and he'd be. Taoiseach, of course, Simon Harris, who's more interested in what's happening in Brussels and in Budapest and in Israel than what's happening in Ireland. All his energies are on that. He's an absolute disgrace on the world.
He has spent an entire fortune on flights.
He's a complete and utter disgrace as a Prime Minister of this country. There's no doubt about it. He's anti-Semitic in his rhetoric. on the war, totally anti-Semitic. RTE are totally anti-Semitic on their reporting of the war. There's no doubt about that. They allow TDs on the panel when they're into chat to them, their friends TDs across all parties, to hurl and vilify a small country like Israel and to hurl anti-Semitic charges on them and to tell them they're committing genocide with no proof whatsoever. They can say it in public. And if you say something often enough, people will believe it. They'll believe it. Our small, tiny Jewish population in this country are under siege every day from our politicians and the media, and it has to stop. And I would urge anybody who's knocking at your door to tell them it has to stop. Has to stop. It's not fair, you know.
You have to wait till Trump gets in. Trump will shout it all out when he gets in.
Well, this time next week when we'll be on air, we'll have a new president in America, and because it's on next Tuesday, the voting, and Donald Trump, well, obviously he made a good fist of the Middle East when he was president the last time. He brought in the Abraham Accords. No?
I would like to see somebody that that is going to make a huge effort to try and bring peace to the Middle East, and and also to Ukraine and Russia, because the world is in turmoil, and there's people dying, and there's innocent people dying on both sides of every crisis and every war, and the only people that are happy are the military people, those that are making money out of it from weapons.
Gun lobby, Mary, the gun lobby.
The gun lobby. Well, not the gun lobby so much as the military. The military might. There's money to be made in.
Well, the American economy is based on making war,
and they'll keep it going as long as they can to try and make money. And it doesn't matter in the world. Anyone who thinks that A or B cares about the people on any side of a war, they don't. They're looking to see how long can I prolong this war, and it needs there needs to come a person who is going to say, enough, this stops, and it stops now, whoever that's going to be.
And Caroline, who do you think will win that election, or have you been following it?
Well, I think history could be. History has an opportunity to be made with the first female president of the United States, but I think she's too tarnished being with Biden. It's very hard to see, even though a lot of people don't want Trump, he appeals to a lot of people. He's an alternative to what they're dealing with.
Yeah, that's true. We call him down here in Clare the West Clare businessman. You see, he owns Doon Bay Golf Course, and
I'd say he's a patron saint under Pat.
He is, yeah. He's revitalised the whole area. He also announced that there'll be no tax on tips in future. You know, on tips would you get, because I didn't realise how many jobs in what I call the hostility industry, but they call it the hospitality industry. I call it the hostility industry when it comes to workers, and it's the same in this country. What Trump is proposing is that there'll be no tax on tips, because a huge amount of waitressing jobs and waitress jobs are tips only. That's how you get your living. Tips only. There's no salary. Tips only. So, you know.
But I have a huge problem with that. I mean, why is the American system? I mean, it's not for us to say, but anyone could open up a restaurant in the morning, have the biggest restaurant in the world, pay their staff pittance, and expect every person coming to buy a meal, spend maybe $200 on a meal out, and then have to pay 20% or 10% tip on top of that to the waitress, who isn't being paid properly by her employer.
You have in this country as well.
But it makes no sense. Employers should be forced to actually pay their staff.
But this is the corruption we're talking about in Ireland. Most of those owners are friends of the big political parties that own these businesses, you know, and they contribute to them financially. So there's going to be nothing done for them to derive a decent living wage in those industries. Very little done, you know. People working in hotels, in cafes, in fast food places in Ireland, they cannot afford to live. They cannot afford to pay their rent. They're being subsidized by you and me and everyone else. They're getting social welfare payments and they're working full time. They are working full time and they get social welfare payments. Why? Because they're not being paid enough. It's as simple as that, you know. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the hospitality industry crying because they didn't get a reduction in their VAT rate from 13.5% to 9%. It doesn't make sense. Let's have a laugh, lads. Lear Media, the panel is a show. Here everyone's a night, and
all right, Dave.
All right, Tree.
Have they thought of a name for the baby yet?
Yeah, well, if it's a girl, Bill wants to call it Sigourney after the actress Sigourney Weaver.
And what if it's a boy?
Well, if it's a boy, he wants to call it Rodney.
Yeah? Who after?
After me, Tree.
Oh.
Right, Tree. Hey, right, girls. Here, got them wigs you ordered. Albert's bringing them in from the van.
Son?
What?
What name have they decided on?
If it's a girl, they're calling her Sigourney, after an actress. And if it's a boy, they're naming him Rodney, after Dave.
Brilliant trick. Me this. Why is it that women always want to know what time you got in, right? They say to you, what time did you get in last night? You say, oh, I don't know, about 12:15. And they say, no, you didn't, it was 20 to 2. And I think to myself, well, why bloody ask?
That's right. Why ask? I mean, it's like saying to you, what's that on the telly, Coronation Street or EastEnders? And you say it's EastEnders. And they say, no, it ain't, it's Coronation Street. I mean, why ask?
Yeah, why ask?
Beats me.
You know, I came home one night and my missus said, here, where are you living now? I said, here. She said, no, you ain't, threw me suitcase at me.
Why ask? Why ask? Oh, mate, that's women for you, isn't it? I mean, they're a different breed. Take my Marlene. She's always moaning on and on about how I don't respect her. I mean, me? Don't respect my own wife? Daft old mare. I mean, I love her, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I think getting married was the worst mistake I ever made in my life. I sometimes think back to when we first met in Lewisham Grove. I wish I'd never ever walked into that betting shop now.
Oh, so that's how you...
I remember something very important I meant to tell you.
What's that?
It's gone now.
Oh, that's all right, Denzel. It happens to me all the time. See, I was just going to say something important to Del, and it's gone now. So how'd it turn out there, Mike?
Huh?
Coronation Street or EastEnders?
You know, people become famous for a little while, then they disappear. Like Rennie and Renata, Simon D.
Or Gandhi?
Yeah! So, see, maybe this time, it's our...
Yeah. I mean, he made one great film and then he never saw it.
that was a clip there from Only Fools and Horses. And,
Trigger was brilliant.
He was,
What, mate? You go right.
Rodney was great. He's calling him Rodney after Dave.
Hatch, remember the time he was in the Trigger was in the van with Denzel, and he says, my brother had a strange taste in women, and he said, what do you mean? They were men.
But there was great characters, Boise and the casting was fantastic in that, you know. The most of them are dead now, of course. Many of them are dead, passed away.
Well, they're all dead except David Jason.
Rodney and Dell don't talk in real life. Don't they? Massive falling out.
Yeah.
Oh, they had. You get that sometimes in a lot of programs that ran for years and years. So it happened in.
Rodney's in Fraser now.
Is he?
Yeah, New Fraser.
Where's that? Where's Fraser?
Fraser.
What?
I didn't see the recent series now of Fraser. I didn't see it. I must say I didn't see it, but I loved the original. Well, I loved Fraser himself, the character, when he was in Cheers, when he came into Cheers. Kelsey Grammer, and the original Cheers program was fantastic. In the bar, they had all the characters. And they were all. It's like any typical bar in any country. You have. If you frequent any bar, particularly in the country where I grew up in the village, you go into the pub at 9 o'clock at night, and you know who's sitting where. You look to your left down table, and you know who's going to be sitting down there, who's going to be sitting up at the corner one day at the counter, who's able to see the door and everybody coming in and out, and making their caustic remarks on different people, and so you have all that, But a lot of that has been lost out with over 700 or 800 pubs closed in the country, gone. Well,
I mean, I never really liked. I never really liked American comedy, except maybe for loved the Cosby Show. I loved Bill Cosby, I have to say. And I can't remember the one with a fresh Prince
of Bel-Air. Yeah. You need a good slap to watch that now. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
What's his name was fantastic in it.
Will Smith.
No, not Will Smith. The other guy.
The father. The father was brilliant as well.
No. He was.
The brother or the way. Brother.
He danced.
Oh yeah.
Charlie High.
Who was he?
Alfonso Ribeiro.
Oh yeah.
When he did the scene, it's not unusual to be loved by.
Well, Mary.
Song, yeah.
Some moves, Mary.
It was just fabulous, Caroline.
Hey Pat, I have a question to ask you. Since tomorrow's Halloween, are there Halloween traditions still there of like ghost stories?
I suppose the sound.
Are they still there, Toby?
Halloween going up.
No, Caroline's asking Tony.
About sound, the celebration of sound, the old Celtic or the old Druidic traditions.
It's 4 seasons in Irish. Tomorrow is Samhain. It's the coming of winter, and it's the time when all the farming stopped, and everybody when they start lying down for the winter. Tomorrow, Friday is the first day of winter. Now the English don't go by that; they go by a different system. Whereas we go November, December, and January are winter months. And tomorrow, it's really associated with the dead.
Yeah.
Night that you're supposed to first of all remember the dead. Then the church were very cute. They didn't want to bring the dead into it, so they brought in the first of Friday is the Feast of All Saints.
Yes.
And Saturday then is the Feast of All Souls. So you're supposed to pray for the dead in this month. People go to graveyards. November as well.
But is the tradition still there for like people telling ghost stories around Halloween and?
That's been taken over. The Americans have taken it over altogether. They forget that it started in Ireland. They don't even know it started in Ireland. Most of them. No. It's not an English tradition. It's taken and there's a time when apples are coming to the end now. You say you a thing of apples, and there's a time we had a barmbrack, a cake with things put into it. 5 things put into it. Things with it was really pagan idea. You got
a pagan festival.
Inside in it, a piece of wood. The ring, of course, was the thing that people wanted. And a bean you got inside in it. And I can't think of the 5th one.
A rag.
A what?
A rag. Bit of a rag.
Right, exactly. Put into the barn back. And you got these things, they were associated with different things that happened. And people believe this, how fool they were. But the superstition, you see, and people if you got a piece of rag, of course, you were to be poor, you wouldn't have anything. If you got the stick, you were going to die. Imagine telling a child they were going to die.
Yeah.
And P was, I can't think of P. Bean, of course, was money. P, I can't think of what that was for now. But
I never heard of those.
With different things that were associated with. But then, of course, it was a night when the dead were supposed to get up. If you believe that, you believe anything. But anyway, I don't know how they're going to get up, But anyway, they're there. And of course, they're all over, then you got into winter. So that's the best.
I only ever heard of the ring, and it would be wrapped up in a piece of white paper.
And that was that's a new thing. It was
put
always
into farm bread.
Yeah.
And then you had the apples, and you'd have to bob around in the water, and you'd have to bite them inside in the water.
Yeah, they were things in the kept in. They weren't original. Putting a tail on a donkey and all these stupid things you had, But
and you had the advent of toffee apples, then, but toffee apples.
But toffee apples now were different things. They were put on just for sour apples to get rid of the sour taste. Where you made up this thing from sugar. Kind of a brown sauce you made up and you put it on the thing. That was to get rid of that thing, and you got a dirty stick stuck into it, Oh, I remember a family selling those. They sent you out, you brought in the sticks, and if you brought in about 20 sticks, lollipop sticks you just picked up in the street.
Yeah.
You brought them into the house, and they gave you a free one then, and you take the stuff off. It was like a toffee mixture. You could bite off the apple and throw away the apple in the end when you bit that off, you see. People used to sell it in their houses. It's a way of making money.
That's why I remember that one of the first treats I got was my toffee apple in the village, and of course we eat all the toffee, threw away the apple because it's too sour.
The apple was disgusting.
There used to be a woman down in Garryowen, down near St. John's Church, in Rossa Avenue, at the back side of Rossa Avenue, more towards Greenhill Road and St. John's School. And Mrs. Doran, she used to always make the apple tarts. And you'd bring down your plate and your tea towel and for your parents and you'd bring them down. And Anne and myself were only talking about it, my friend, one day. And we'd go down with a tea towel on our way to Mass on a Sunday. And when we'd come out of Mass, the apple tart would be made. And we'd pay Mrs. Doran and then head home with an apple tart. She used to make the most beautiful apple tarts, and she used to do it for everyone in Garryowen.
Well, there is hardly any joy in food anymore because of the advent of the supermarket. The supermarkets have killed the cottage industry, and it has killed so many good traditions as well.
Cakes, anyway, is a sign of an idle mind. If you think of anyone that bakes cakes, they usually have nothing else to be doing. Real sign of an idle mind. Women that bake cakes during the day.
Yeah,
that's what gets people, gives people a reason to get up. And some people love cake.
Could you bake a cake, Tony? Could you bake a cake?
Could I bake?
Could you bake a cake?
Oh, I barely make tea. No.
But would you have a crack after it?
If you cook a dinner, you mightn't like it when it's finished. You mightn't like it then after cooking it. It's crazy.
But you'll always eat what your wife hands up to you.
That's different.
Now, if she wasn't at home and if she was on holidays, maybe with your daughters or her friends,
Tony, go out and buy his dinner.
What would you do? Would you cook for yourself?
Go out and get a dinner.
No, he'd go out.
That's your parents delivered every day, Tim.
Yeah.
A dinner delivered every day for €5.
Yeah.
You could go down to all Lady Roads below. They do a dinner as well for around €5.
You wouldn't cook for yourself?
No, never did. Never would.
No,
you'd sit around and wait until your wife would get home from work to cook for you.
Well, I say, God rest my mum, but she taught every one of us how to do basic food, how to cook basic food. So I cook every day.
And I don't eat meat, you see, so I'm very limited. I don't eat red meat. And
but you eat chicken, do you?
I
had today, Patsy Perry turn over. I had lovely salmon today. I don't know what farm it came out of now, and I don't care. but I ate it, you know.
Salmon is a farmhouse salmon. I wouldn't. Certainly, if your bowls aren't moving, you could feed a farmhouse salmon and you'll be flying after that. That's all I'd say about farmhouse salmon.
Fresh salmon out and farm salmon, I wouldn't know. You know,
we've come to the end of another edition of the panel here on LearMedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us. Next week, we'll have a new panelist member. He'll be back from holidays. He'll be with us, with ourselves.
Who is he?
Yeah, you get rid of me or something.
No, an extra, plus one more. Mike Putt will be with us next week, and we'll be going live next week. We'll be doing the same thing, but we'll be on live on our YouTube channel, so you can tell all your friends about us. I know how we're going to get on. We'll have a new president of the United States when we're on air next week, so we'll have something to talk about.
Anyway, I need potatoes anyway. I don't care what way they're cooked, as long as I don't have to peel them.
Yeah, so
you can boil the potatoes with the skins on them as long as you wash them, and then and you can eat them with the skin on, and the skin is all the minerals are in the skin.
So from Mary Honan, from Tony Browne, from Caroline and myself, lads, until we meet again, it's been a blast. Take care and have a great week.
This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel.